Hi everyone, welcome to Ben's Business Podcast episode number 46. Today I'm going to be interviewing the CEO of Super Genius, Ryan Pinnick. This is the third attempt to try and get him on for the interview. I've just invited Ryan on again, so I hope everyone that's come on the last two can join us live to watch this, but if anyone's watching the replay, welcome. Ryan Pinnick is something special. I've been watching a lot of his content. Attended at least 4 of his workshops now, and I've advanced to his more advanced workshops on superconsciousness and the subconscious. So that's Ryan here now. Third time lucky. Yes, yeah. You're here.
Cool. Can you hear yourself now?
I can, yeah.
Dude, I don't know, man. I've just switched mobiles, and I'll try one more time with the headset, and if it doesn't work, then I don't think everyone else can hear you, so you might just have to go with it, yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Sorry about that. That's cool. Sorry about that. I know that the iPhone 10 is pretty dodgy with Facebook Live, so I've gone back to the 8, and I haven't had problems in the past. But we're on the call, and that's the main thing. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you. And in the meantime, I'll plug my headset in, and hopefully that will support you as well. So let's see how it goes.
Okay. So I've been watching, producing, and I've attended a lot of his workshops, and I'm really amazed with all the new knowledge that I've learned from Ryan. His wisdom's just his ability to run a large workshop, and his speaking abilities is just really impressive. So we can learn a lot from Ryan in terms of his expertise in the super consciousness and subconscious mind. So welcome, Ryan. I can't hear myself talking in the background now, so that really helps.
Cool, man. Yeah, no problem. My initial job was conferencing and web conferencing and audio conferencing. So it was good to be back into the stress of a call not working again and remind me why I chose to be an entrepreneur and leave my previous career behind. But I'm glad we're chatting now, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with you.
Yeah, and that's another thing as well about Ryan. It takes a lot to make me laugh out loud like the way that Ryan does. And he's got a comedian. He's been a comedian in his background as well. So be prepared for your mind to be blown and for some laughter.
Cool.
So Ryan, I've given a introduction of you 3 times now. Would you like to give an introduction about yourself, how you started and developed Super Genius and got into the speaking?
Yeah, cool. So always a pleasure to see you. I know we've got to know each other fairly well over the last few months, and so looking forward to our chat. And very briefly, I think I just intuitively had a sense of wanting to get more out of life. I've always had a sense of trying to be a little better than before. I come from a pretty turbulent background, and I'm not quite sure how much of that shaped me in the sense of my motivation and desire to be where I am today. But I've always just wanted to have a better life. And so I've been a keen learner, a bit like yourself, and went to lots of seminars. I still try and learn as much as possible. Still invest a lot in mentoring from people who are, a few levels ahead of me. And so I'm just naturally a learner. But also I think part of me is someone who values excellence, and if I'm not going to get the best, then I don't want it. So I think that's driven me to also be personally a better person. And so, for example, when I was in my career, I moved to England in 2000. I moved over as an engineer, and even though I was in a good career and I kind of progressed quite quickly, I realized very quickly that I wasn't actually going to create the life I wanted, particularly financially in terms of the freedom as well, being in a career. So then I went on a massive entrepreneurial leap of faith, and ambition mixed with naivety led to a significant amount of debt. I think that's a really good formula. Naivety plus ambition equals debt. And I really battled my way through the beginning of my entrepreneurial career, largely because I really value doing good work. I really value making a difference to people. And so, whilst I had many opportunities to make money, it was at the expense of other people. And so I turned those opportunities down. So, I think there was always some kind of intuitive guide within myself to not dedicate myself to anything apart from my purpose. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And so now it's led me to where I am today, and that is to run workshops and seminars empowering people to unleash their genius and overcome their self-sabotaging behavior.
Well, yeah, that's. I love the story, that the kind of journey that you've been on, like all the ups and downs, and it's made you who you are today. And you said something that was really powerful in the last workshop we were at, that like impacted me. What you said, that I think you said my pain is your power, or basically along the lines of your pain is our gain. That was it. And
Yes,
your pain is our gain, and I like that idea as well, because I wouldn't say I've had a great past. I didn't enjoy school and everything, so I relate a lot to what you share, because you share in the workshops especially. You really open up to us and just tell us like it is, rather than hiding the bad past, and rather than just showing up as a successful speaker, which you are now. But you're really relating with people in a great way, that you connect with the audience in that way, because you go to the very deep, dark past, and that really elevates your speaking to a whole new level I've never experienced before. So that's I really enjoy that, and it's somewhere like I see you as like an inspiration, and kind of where I want to go with my speaking career and things. And it really shows just everything you do. So this is just showing my appreciation to what you do, because it makes a big difference, and you're a great man. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
So that was actually one of the questions that was coming up. Actually, how do you in your busy life, especially now with all these workshops going on, how do you squeeze in the time for yourself to work on yourself? And even now, and maybe not so much in the past, but how do you still manage to squeeze that in? Do you make it a priority? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, right? And I think, I don't ever say that I've got all the answers. I've worked out what works for me. And so, maybe my story doesn't resonate with someone. Maybe the way I go about doing things doesn't resonate with someone, and that's totally cool. I used to be very much sort of workaholic, all guns blazing type person, and only I think in the last 12 months have I really tried to focus on a more, at the risk of using a cliche, balanced life. And I think when someone's really driven to be successful, it's easy to forget why you wanted to create success. In my business, I've been successful about 3 or 4 years, and then I've forgotten why I wanted to be successful in a sense, because it was about, supporting my family, particularly in South Africa, going on holidays, enjoying time with my partner, and for me, racing my motorcycle, which is, my real bliss. And so when you get caught up in success, it can actually easily be an addiction to get more.
Yeah.
And that I'm very fortunate, because of the circles that I hang out in. I get to chat with a lot of successful people. And in fact, just this morning, I was having a meeting with a community manager of a network of 500 successful entrepreneurs, where the minimum requirement is your revenue must be at least £2 million. So this person, whilst he's not a successful entrepreneur, manages a lot of successful entrepreneurs. And actually, they all suffer from the same thing, which is what you've just asked me.
Okay.
So as you know, through the workshops that I run, a lot of my decision making is actually done intuitively in relation to being absolutely focused on the end result that I absolutely want. Because the difficulty, as actually you and I experienced over the last couple of months, you've been very persistent in asking me to do a podcast with you. And 2 or 3 times I said, hey, I'd love to do it, but now's not the time. And so it's easy to get caught up in every opportunity that presents itself. And I heard a speaker say once, one of the keys to success is learning what to say no to, because saying yes is easy. There's lots of opportunity out in the world right now. And so learning what to say no to is probably more important than saying yes to stuff. So I don't get it right all the time. Like just this morning, I felt really overwhelmed and I felt really flustered. And in a way, I still kind of do. And so, the Facebook Live starting late added to that tension.
Right.
And we're all human beings, and it's far from perfect ever. So taking time out to reflect on what's important is crucial. So the way I do that is I have a morning practice around meditation and connecting to my genius and intuitively through the techniques that you've learned, but also making sure I create space where I have free weekends, maybe a week or two holiday every 2 months or 6 weeks. And then that just makes me more present. And so I suppose for me personally, creating space, even down to the fact that sometimes if I've got a busy schedule, I'll rather catch an Uber to a meeting and ask the driver to switch the radio off and then have that 30 minutes of space to myself. Right. So it's in that space that allows me to then just reflect on what's important, what's not important, and what aspects of my life am I neglecting because maybe I got caught in something else.
Okay, that's a good answer to that question. So yeah, so it's about not just creating space for development, but creating space for letting your mind just have that space to think as well.
Totally.
Because I tend to pack in, maybe like you did in the past, I tend to pack in, like stick my earphones on, go for a walk with my dog. But every so often I decide I'm going to enjoy this walk and just go for a walk with my dog. But I kind of went to the extremes with personal development for a long time, and I still am. And I listen to like audiobooks any chance I can, really. But I see that like that's one way of personal development and growth as well. In a way, is just really taking time off and letting it process. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So another thing you actually reminded me of a question I wanted to ask about. Like you've got this high up group of entrepreneurs, maybe higher up than you, or people who are pulling you up and teaching you lessons in business that you maybe didn't know, and that's a mastermind that you're a part of. So
it's actually a group. So there's events, we hang out. It's a very cool thing. It's called the Supper Club, basically. And so it's a really cool structure. But effectively, it's like a mastermind. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was interested when you mentioned that at the workshop as well. I was just wondering, like, what kind of lessons do you learn there that are like skills, as in what my question is like, if someone follows their genius and their passion, what skills do people need to be successful regardless if you go for what you, because there's that cliche is do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life or whatever, but like what skills do you also need to be a successful business owner?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question because people focus on how to create what they want, and that's important. But actually, if you're a leader and you're driving a vision and you're driving an organization, for example, or a movement or a community, then as a leader, for example, in business, you do need to spend I'd say 20 to 40% of your time connecting to the vision, establishing the vision, sharing the vision, and so forth. And so, for example, in that environment that I was in this morning, yes, we learn about tactics. I'd say that's 10 to 15% of the benefit. The other benefit is actually creating partnerships, which will exponentially accelerate growth, and also creating opportunities to work together on a supplier-customer perspective. So, for example, and something which I didn't realize is when I'm in a community of people that are maybe even at the same level or just ahead, I realize that everyone suffers from the same problem or
Okay.
problems. And actually, that's a relief because if you're
Yeah.
on your own, for example, and you've got a seven-figure business or whatever level of business, and you're at home on your own and you're plugging away and you're trying to do your ads and you're doing a Facebook Live and you're doing what Gary Vee's saying and you're doing what this person's saying, and it can be a very lonely place. And so what I like about going to hang out in those communities is we very rarely talk about tactics. In
Yeah.
fact, we very rarely talk about business. A lot of the time, we're talking about life and the struggles and the challenges and our thoughts and our feelings and stuff. It's a bit like a support group, and so what that really does is it just makes, for me, gives me a lot of confidence and a lot of relief that actually I'm not the only dude going through that stuff. But really, there's also hanging out with thought leaders to understand what is the next potential trend. No one can ever predict what the next trend is going to be. Absolutely and 100% guarantee that. But, in that environment, I'm learning about artificial intelligence, I'm learning about voice marketing, Alexa marketing, a whole bunch of stuff, which may not be relevant to my business, but I'm starting to explore different avenues to evolve the business, because I think the key to success in anything, whether it's relationships, business, your career, your health, your spiritual fulfillment, is all about evolution. You have to evolve consciously, and as you evolve, your reality will evolve along with you, and so your opportunities that you experience will be a reflection of your consciousness. And by the way, it's also quite fun, to hang out with people and so forth, and just get out of the office and that. So
Yeah.
it's not so much about learning all the time. It's several benefits, which I've just listed there.
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting. That's what I find attending your workshops at Super Genius. You're making friends, and you for that reason alone, it's worth it. And then you get all the lessons and everything. As you say, the community is just so important for me. It's why I'm creating one of my own communities, and I created that out of my genius in a way, the Ben's Business Book Club thing, because I knew I needed that. I needed to speak to other entrepreneurs that weren't around me in my house or in my family or friend group. And I have friends and I have family, but then I need to speak to people who can relate to me as well. And like you're saying, the struggles that we're going through together, and not really just to find a solution, but just to almost vent and feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
So it's,
Totally,
I came
totally.
up with the
If
phrase
you
there.
if you
It's
if,
like
if you ever
it's
want to
the
create
AA for
account,
successful business.
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you ever
You
want
go.
to create accountability in your life, be responsible for people. So I've got a team of people that I employ. I've got over 1,100 customers in our community, like people who've paid a lot of money. And
Yeah.
so when I'm not feeling motivated, when I'm feeling sorry for myself, when Brexit happens, when all these events happen that, generally speaking, in, kind of make people quit, I remember that I'm committed to helping people, and I've got people who are relying on me. And so, the mastermind is one great environment of accountability, but the ultimate source of accountability is being responsible for other people. And I would say that's where 80% of my motivation comes from. It doesn't matter what the weather's doing. It doesn't matter what I think of Trump or politics or Brexit. I've got to show up. And particularly at my workshops and speaking engagements, I've got to show up on
Mm.
fire. I can't just come there and go, oh, sorry, guys, I just had a really bad day yesterday. Do you mind if I
Yeah.
underperform today? And so I think, creating your community like you've done is a phenomenal thing. And then also taking responsibility for your clients' results is the ultimate form of motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. It's a really good point. And I always wonder how people like yourself and leaders with a lot of responsibility, like you're saying, you've discussed with us at the workshops about people crumble basically under all that pressure and the tension, but it's also that tension forces you to show up and perform at your very best. So that's a really good point. I like that. So I've got a list of questions. There isn't an idea that how, like, you've taught us at the workshops how to kind of trust our intuition, and maybe for like we've been building that really well at the workshop, but like maybe for like people who are new to this, like how do you trust your intuition and your subconscious and have kind of faith in that, versus you've talked to me about the idea of needing authorities and things, but what way how do you actually go for your instinct, and how do you trust that more? Do you just build confidence by successes?
Yeah. It's a good question, and I find it interesting how you framed it up. My experience is that most people don't trust their intuition, and that's not going to change. So I'm an experimentist in the sense that I don't even know if that's a word. I kind of experimented with the word. So I like to create results. And so what I've learned, I mean, like I've been doing the work that I teach for 10 years. So I've got experience in trusting my intuition, if that makes sense. But, when you're starting out using your intuitive wisdom instead of your rational mind, there's a big leap of faith, because if you are empowered in your intuitive self, then your intuition will sometimes, if not most of the time, take you in a direction that your rational mind won't take you. And that's scary, because your rational mind could be, and very often is, verified by other people, And so, you're getting a feeling, or as you know, through the work we teach, a sort of a subconscious mind visualization of an action you need to take through the visualization processes we teach. Yet rationally, that's the most absurd thing you could think of. Your SWOT analysis points in a different direction. Your mentors point you in a different direction. The market research historically points you in a different direction. Yet your intuition is saying go right when all the proof and the evidence goes left. So that takes a bit of practice and takes a bit of skill, and to be blunt, takes a bit of training. And so over time, like anything, the more you lean and have the faith to follow your inner wisdom, the more you realize that actually that's the best way to go. And even to this day, I still have trouble trusting my intuition, because often your intuition will take you down a path which is unknown. In other words, there is no evidence. There is no past history records and proof and so forth. Because when I talk about genius, I'm talking about genius being something that's new, innovative, and unique. So then how can you rely on the past if you're going to create something unique? Lady Gaga didn't copy someone else's method to success. I don't think anyone's ever worn a meat suit, for example. So so that doesn't mean you must ignore your rational mind. But I loved a quote from Einstein. He said that we've created a society where the rational mind is leading the intuitive mind, and actually we were born to have the intuitive mind lead the rational mind. So in other words, the rational mind is actually there to be a servant of our intuitive mind, and in our society these days it's the other way around, particularly because of the way our education system is designed. So I don't think people will ever overcome the lack of trust in their intuition. But at the end of the day, the more you rely on it and the more you create results consistently, the more faith you'll have to overcome the lack of trust.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good answer. It's almost like the Eastern philosophy against the West philosophy, in a way that we, in the West, we're very practical, rational minded, like you're saying. We need facts and things before we move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's that's actually a question off the back of that. So, like, one of the things that I do, as you've probably seen, is it's like I mash up or do takeaways of books and things that I'm reading, because I'm always I feel like I've got a lot to learn still. I'm only 29. I'm really pushing my learning and taking my education really seriously because I'm never at school, and I don't think school would have done a great job for the way that I work anyway, because I'm dyslexic and I don't learn in that style and environment. I was forced out on my own to do things like coming from Scotland, going down to London to this workshop and following my intuition in a lot of ways. And I never felt like doing what the classwork was telling me. So like, what I'm asking is, are we still using our genius when we're taking this information and putting our own touch on the top of it? Like, because what you've taught us is like we're creators, and I do create things as well. But a lot of what I'm doing is I'm taking information and then kind of re-expressing it to learn even further myself while giving value to other people. So what's your thoughts on that? Is that still using your genius?
Genius takes on many forms, you know. I think of my business mentor, and he didn't invent coffee. He invented the way coffee was distributed. In fact, he didn't even invent it. He copied it from the States and brought it to the UK, and became very successful. You see, so it's very difficult to say that genius is one particular thing. I do believe, knowing you personally, that it is your purpose to share and teach and produce content and so forth. And so, you know, at the start of any journey, whenever someone is starting out, like when I was a few years ago, when I was starting out as a stand-up comedian, the natural instinct is to go with what you know because it's safe, right? So therefore, the more cycles you go through, the more performances you have in the comedy world, for example, then the more you start to evolve your own style and your own wisdom. So, you know, when I started speaking 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was using wholeheartedly someone else's content. I used to teach Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right?
Yeah.
And then as I got into speaking, because I was committed to discovering my own space in the world, I started to attract wisdom and lessons and mentors that guided me in the general direction of what it is that I want to do. And so over the last 3 or 4 years, I've then taken that learning and definitely started to evolve it to, I suppose, in a way, this is an interesting conversation because I've never spoken about this. I've kind of, like, you know, when I run workshops, sometimes I'll say something and I go, holy cow, I've never said that before. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
So there's a natural stage of evolution when you are creating that you actually let go of what you know and what is conventional wisdom to then, if you are truly connected to your intuitive self and your higher self and your genius, to then start to evolve wisdom, ideas, strategies that don't exist. Another more practical example is I've run events over the last 4 years. Over 30,000 people have attended several events that I've run. And most of the time, I'd say 30% of the strategies, particularly in marketing, that I've used to attract that audience has been something I've noticed from someone else. And then another 70 or so percent has been me completely inventing marketing strategies. So you can't say absolutely it must be completely unique, and you can't say absolutely you must copy other people. There's definitely a balance in between, and depending on where you are on your journey, that's going to oscillate and evolve.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because there
But
was
you
a
are
lot of
definitely in your
ideas.
genius. You are definitely podcasts,
Yeah.
content, you're in it, mate, you're in it. And then, you know, 5-10 years time, you're going to be producing your own content. And then some guy or some young lady or maybe even an older person will be quoting your book in a similar context. And so that's the natural evolution of genius. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So it's a process that we're all going through and learning from. In some way, we're learning bits and bobs from authorities.
Correct. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the other thing is I kind of know the answer to this, but what's made you so successful with this whole Super Genius workshop? workshops that you've
Gee,
done?
blood,
Like
blood,
what would you, if you were
sweat.
to nail it down to maybe two things?
Yeah, I'll nail it down to two or three things: blood, sweat, tears, conflict, stress, and then using that tension, right? Because that's what an entrepreneur is, using that tension and as a powerful force as opposed to a destructive force. You know, I talk about this all the time. So Napoleon
Yeah,
Hill studied 100 of the most successful people during Henry Ford's time and deduced that the biggest reason of failure is people's inability to transform negative emotion. So I would say the single biggest thing is that we're going to experience all sorts of challenges, problems in every area of our life. And so as a teacher of alchemy, I teach people to transform any form of tension into a positive creative force, which you can then access through intuition, imagination, you know, even just creativity, or maybe just in a physical form. Like I like racing my bike when I'm in a high stress state because it makes me super focused. So it's about learning to harness tension and instead of making it destroy us, using that to actually build us. And so it's like for me, I always write the best when my back's up against the wall. I've had a really tough time and I'm experiencing a lot of negative emotion. I get really raw and I get really vulnerable. And then I access an aspect of my wisdom and my genius and intelligence and experience that I wouldn't be able to access if things were going smoothly. I think you know if you don't have tension in your life, you're going to really struggle to break through to a new level of success and consciousness and evolution. So yeah, so using tension for a creative fashion and making sure that I'm wholeheartedly focused on my vision about what it is I want to create without compromise.
yeah. Could you say that last part again? I just broke up a wee bit for me.
Yeah, I said
The last,
using if you can imagine that tension as capital, you're going to invest that capital. That capital, the other thing I did was invest all tension I'm experiencing wholeheartedly in my vision of what it is I'm creating in all areas of my life. By the way, you know, vision isn't just exclusive to business. You've got to have a vision for your relationship. Otherwise, it's going to get stagnant and be complacent. You've got to have a vision for your health and fitness. You've got to have a vision for your fun and lifestyle and so forth. And so a lot of the work I do, as you know, is using visioning techniques and then taking all stress and tension in our lives and investing that into the vision so we can evolve to a new level.
okay, yeah. I've not heard you say it in that way as well, so that's new for me, and that's really interesting. So, um, it's like, yeah, complacency is the enemy really, and you talk about the creating that outer structure and using that to almost create tension for yourself, so it can launch you forward into the vision. Would I be right?
100%, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there was a part, like these are all. I have like a list of questions that I had when you were speaking at the workshop, and then I would jot it down and say questions for Ryan, and I had all these like a book packed full of questions. So one of the questions in one of the workshops we were doing, just to give people context of that, we were practicing how to tap into our subconscious, and say that exercise we were explaining what's obvious to me, and then coming out with something and asking that question to your subconscious mind, what's obvious to me about something means this, and asking
Mm-hmm.
yourself those questions. There was a part where you said to not coach people. So like if you're, what my question is if you're not an expert on using your subconscious yet, if you're not really like 100% or 85% leaning into your trust of your intuition and subconscious, you're not really ready to coach people on like the advanced level of then going into coaching. So you would say what you imagine someone, what's maybe their ego, or what's wrong with someone. Let's say like there's parts of someone's personality is wrong with them, there's parts of now let's call that the ego, And then there's other parts that's their genius, which is their greatness and what's good about them, and then not going on to coach them and say what to do with the next step. Is that something you should apply to like all areas of life? Like don't overstep the mark. Where do you go? When do you advance to be a coach? If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you've actually discussed a number of topics, I suppose, in that thing. So just to give it context, what Ben's talking about is I run a training, and so what Ben's talking about is a process. But I'm actually a big believer, even if I was going to coach you, Ben, even if I'm coaching someone, right? I, as much as possible, try and extract action to take from the client. Okay? Mm-hmm. Even if they make a suggestion that's wrong, I will support them in following through on that, because I don't know why, but I think intuitively that's just how I work. And I think it's more important to empower someone to be able to come up with their own actions and answers than to just dish out actions and answers. And I suppose it's the whole teaching a man how to fish analogy. So that's why I try to get people into the habit of not telling people what to do. And as a coach, as a trainer, I don't tell people what to do in training environments. Now, if I've got a private client and that person is asking me for action and stuff, I will give that person action. But in a training environment, there's no value in me telling people what to do in one particular scenario, because tomorrow there's going to be a new scenario, and therefore I'm not around, and therefore I've disempowered the student from believing that they have the intuitive genius to come up with the action that's relevant for them. Because what's relevant for you, Ben, in whatever area of life you're looking for advice on, is probably not relevant to someone else. Our paths are always different. And so when I'm training people, I don't want to disempower the student by telling them what to do. I want to rather empower the student to have the ability to come up with their own action. And sometimes, I'm working with someone and I know the action they're taking is wrong, and I'm cool with that.
Because they need to learn it for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And that is actually something I wish someone did for me. When I started my journey, I naively took on advice that was given to me in different businesses that I was trying to create, and as a result, made a lot of mistakes. And so what I realized what was important was, it's very important to get advice from people, but at the same time, we've got to take that advice with objectivity and intuitively discern which aspect of that advice is good for me and which aspect of that advice is not relevant to me, right? And that is an intuitive response. For example, I'm spending half a day with my business mentor tomorrow. He never tells me what to do, unless, that's not true. 20% of the time he tells me what to do because it's relevant. But 80% of the time he goes, what would you do? How would you do it? Think about this. So it's, for example, say I'm heading in the wrong direction with my business, or there's a potential risk. He wouldn't say, hey, watch out for the iceberg. He would say, okay, take me through your indicators on the dashboard that you are navigating now, and what do you see? And then I'm like, no, there's an iceberg coming. And he goes, exactly. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Because he's not with me every day to identify icebergs, metaphorically speaking. Yeah. And so if I'm then getting empowered in the indicators that are going to teach me to be a good CEO, then I think that's the mark of a master teacher. Yeah.
Now, yes, you're spot on there, and like you're saying, so if a mentor or a coach was to basically tell you what to do, you maybe avoid that for that one moment, but then tomorrow, as you say, there's a new challenge or obstacle, and you've not learned how to deal with that one by yourself. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It's
really good advice, which I don't recommend you take.
Yeah, exactly. So don't
listen to anything I've said. Ignore it all. Yeah.
Yeah. just yeah. We're gonna get
The irony.
a
Yeah,
plummet
yeah,
of
yeah.
5 years.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I might as well not ask you any more questions.
Yeah. Nothing I've said is relevant. I've got absolutely no advice for you. No, I'm kidding, bro. Do continue.
So like, how do you, so this was a question I got asked by someone when I was encouraging the viewers to ask questions. It was a really good question that I probably would ask myself if I thought of it. So it was how did you develop the super genius method, like the methodology, and one of the questions I have that you can pick the answer or the question you want to answer. The question that I have similar to that is, how do you take all this experience and knowledge that you've learned from people and then package that? I've seen you actually develop it as you're in the workshops, but like from when you've done it like 3 years ago as you were developing Super Genius workshops, how do you take all your knowledge and put that into actionable, practical content as I'm really getting really practical, hands-on information at your workshops that I'm using instantly in your workshop. So how do you develop that?
Yeah. I think one of the key things I've identified really quickly is that I want to learn from people who are where I am. And I still do that today. So, I got involved in Rich Dad seminars. I attended the seminars as a student. I really was drawn to the Rich Dad philosophy around quadrants and so forth. And so even from the time of being a student of Rich Dad, I got myself in some way, shape, or form involved in the organization that I was learning from. So I used to volunteer. I used to work for Rich Dad for free, right? Because I wanted to be in that environment. It's easy to look at where I'm at right now. I'm not the most successful person on the planet, but if compared to where a lot of people are, I'm definitely maybe the next level to not having a job, having a decent business, having a decent lifestyle. So I've always had mentors along the journey, and really, out of huge respect, everyone who's been a mentor to me along the way, whether it was for a month or a year or 3 or 4 years, I am eternally grateful for all of those people. And I'm just a sum total product of the environments that I put myself in. And so, then it came to the point where I decided to go out and be the mentor, be the authority, and actually create my own style of stuff that I found worked, and let go of the stuff that I find that didn't work. So yeah, I think it's really important to learn from great people.
Yeah. So yes, position yourself so you can almost like serve your mentors for free, just to be a sponge and learn from them in a way,
Correct.
and do
Yeah.
that long enough until you feel confidence to go and be a mentor yourself. Because that's the next
Um,
step
co-
for me. I feel that when are you ready?
yeah, you're never ready, dude. You're never ready,
Yeah.
okay? I still lack confidence these days. Not as much as I used to, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. But confidence is not. I think I've got someone wanting to raise money at my door, but
Okay.
we'll let them pass. But confidence is not essential to creativity, and I found that most people are actually not confident. And what is required is intuitive wisdom, focus, and a community and people around you who are supportive of your vision. And
Yeah.
because we all lack confidence at different levels of our mission, having community around us is important. I mean, the amount of times I've wanted to give up in the last 10 years, I can't count. Millions, right? And so whether it's an inspirational story, a mentor giving me good advice, a buddy who's on the journey, who's maybe created an end result, and I'm going to ignore the person at the door, has been invaluable. Yeah, so I'd like to tell you I did it all on my own, but I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, that seems to be the case for every successful person. And I find it funny, you very much undermine how successful you really are when you, just what you said there, because you, to me, you appear, and to everyone watching, you appear very successful. But do you find even at your level, do you still look at who's doing better than you, like compare?
I don't use it to compare. I use it as opportunities to learn and collaborate, and I use it as opportunities to connect. So, you can always learn from someone, and it really goes down to the same point that I made earlier, which is that you should absolutely learn from others, but you must also intuitively determine what's going to work for you and what doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
And so, it's not an elitist thing. I don't hang out with top people because I'm, arrogant in that sense. But there's a lot to be said about accountability. There's a lot to be said about learning from other people. And so, yeah, I think the key thing is you've got to find a community that is on the same journey as you. Like I think that's one of the most important things you can really invest in.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to check if there's any questions before we go, because I know we said we were going to just do it for 45 minutes, which we're running up to that just now with all the technical issues. So, can you see
Can
any
we see who's at the door?
Kind of coming up on the
Can we
comments?
see who's at the
Your
door?
side,
Yes,
yes.
no, I can't see any questions. We want to see who's at the door. Oh, they've gone. Oh, awesome. It was actually a delivery for Danny. She's going to love me, so that's cool. That's all right, no big deal. I thought we could have got a guest speaker in from the Royal Mail. That would have been amazing. It would have been great.
Yeah. Put them on the spot on Facebook Live with a bunch of viewers.
Can you imagine? That'd be epic. First ever Royal Mail interview on Facebook Live. That'd been sick.
Yeah, he could have been a wise guy.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been a wise guy whose advice we were going to ignore.
Yeah. Okay. I can see a bunch of comments, but I don't see any questions. I'm just going through them. Lots of appreciation, Ryan, and everyone's just thanking us for putting this content out there. So thanks for everyone who's joined us on Facebook Live today, and we really appreciate your support. Ryan, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast, and
cool.
eventually got you.
Yeah.
So I look forward to the alchemy workshop this month as well. So
awesome.
And I'll try and ignore what you say and follow your own advice.
Come along to the workshop and don't listen to anything I say.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool, buddy. I'm glad we finally got this time together. You're a good chap, and I appreciate your perseverance. I think that's a really good lesson as well. A lot of the time, I didn't get what I wanted the first time, and I persevered. So I appreciate your perseverance, holding the focus, holding the end result. It's been a great demonstration of how to go about creating what you want. I think often too many people get turned away when they get their first rejection. And so you did it very respectfully. I really honor you, and I have no doubt you got more great things coming up. And I have no doubt that your community will definitely benefit from you sharing your journey. So it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad we got this time together.
Yeah, and likewise. Thanks a lot, Ryan, and thanks for everyone coming online. I'll catch you later.
Cheers, mate.
See ya.